What is something you did when you were younger that you are still facing the consequences of? I started working on a farm when I was 16, worked there for nearly 10 years. The way we sort of crouched over to pick herbs for 6 to 12 hours a day fucked up my spine. I have trouble standing for more than 10 minutes now. I also now understand why my grandmother, who worked on farms for more than 50 years, pops painkillers like candy. Someone replied, buy a pull-up bar and just hang on it shoulder width apart. Let gravity pull your body and stretch your spine. Do like 3 to 5 sets of 30 seconds hanging, or however much you can tolerate. Do this in the morning and before bed. I know it sounds like a stretch, but I had pretty gnarly scoliosis and my old Chinese chiropractor put me on this regiment. I went to a doctor a few years later, and when I asked how my scoliosis was looking, he literally said there was none. It looked normal. I had a tree house that was about 10 feet off the ground and I would regularly jump out of it. Being an idiot, I wouldn't brace myself when I landed because I thought I looked cooler doing it that way. Just straight up land on my feet without so much as bending my knees. Well, guess who's got shit knees before they've hit 30? Someone replied, for anyone who doesn't know how to land safely from heights, bend your knees when you hit the ground, so you go into a crouched golem position, slap the floor with both hands, take some of the force away. If you have forward momentum you need to deal with, tuck your head and roll diagonally over one shoulder, throw one hand under the opposite armpit to get the right angle. Source: former Parker nerd. Not taking care of my teeth and not learning how to budget, now I'm broke with fucked teeth. Blew my credit. Still fixing that one. Nice job, me. Flew off a water slide while goofing off. Landed on concrete. Left hip still hurts to sleep on 20-ish years later. It took at least 10 years before I told my mom what happened. Loud concerts, no earplugs. Someone replied, it's a go-to for us to bring those cheap squishy earplugs for concerts now, especially hip-hop/electronic concerts with fat subs. It straight up weirdly works like an egg where the music actually sounds better and more audible. Instruments get way more clear, and for some odd reason it is easier to hear what people around you are saying. People may look twice, but it saves your ears on top of all that. Overeat and eat poorly. Please teach and demonstrate nutrition and exercise to your kids. It is so fucking hard to defeat a lifetime of bad habits when you're in your adulthood and already feeling the effects of ill health from years of bad eating habits. And no, I don't just mean force them to eat their veggies and thus just create a totally negative relationship with healthy food. You have to find ways to make their importance clear and introduce new ways of eating healthy. Don't just feed a kid whatever they want whenever they want. I see that so much, and the end result is not good. Someone replied, to add to this, don't make your kid eat more than they want to. As long as they are eating nutritious stuff, don't force them to finish their plate. I grew up somewhat poor, so if we ever went out to eat, I'd get in so much trouble if I didn't eat everything I ordered. We paid for all this food, now we have to eat it, or next time you have to split a meal with your brother. Stuff like that. So I've grown up with some weird positive feedback loop of overeating. I get a good dopamine bump from eating myself to too full, and then continuing. It's hard to maintain a healthy weight. A constant battle. It really wasn't until I was an adult when I started taking a doggy back home from restaurants. My wife opened my eyes to that. Yeah, we paid for it, and we are gonna eat it, but later we don't need to cram it down right now. Dental hygiene. Not having a good posture. I listen to music way too fucking loudly. I'm 37 and I absolutely need hearing aids. I'm not deaf, but if there is even slight background noise, everything sounds incredibly muffled. Sometimes I have to ask people to repeat themselves 3 to 4 times. Edit. I never got tinnitus. There were no blaring signs of hearing loss that I noticed. It was extremely gradual. Turn your shit down, bitches. Wear earplugs. Chose a low pay / high stress career. Someone replied, former chef here. Don't be a chef. I sprained my ankle on a treadmill when I was 13, and I was too stubborn to let it heal properly. So now, nearly 15 years later, I can't walk until like 10 in the morning a couple times a month because my ankle is still a wee bit fucked. Ran my credit into the ground because I was so sure I was going to kill myself by the time I was 22, so why not? Someone replied, that's one of the most brutally honest things I've read here. And can totally relate. Not making it a point to work on my social skills. I was a bit of a loner in school, really shy. Now I struggle to make conversation with coworkers without feeling immense levels of anxiety. Worry that without this skill I'll never really get ahead. Not stand up for myself enough. Catching up and learning it as an adult is embarrassing at times. Someone replied, this. I was a shy, awkward girl that willingly accepted whatever happened. Unfortunately my parents didn't help as they would always bag my sister for speaking up, which caused me to hide even further into my shell. You never realize how much can be taken away from you or taken advantage of you until you hit your ultimate limit. It's a price that can last for years. Someone else replied, my philosophy used to be that if everyone was considerate, humble, and polite, the world would be a better place, so that's what I went for, thinking it would get me further in the long run. But if everyone else is just elbowing their way through life, they will just walk over you. This whole turn the other cheek and do unto others way of life is just not working for me anymore. Edit. Lots of good responses and thanks for the hugs. Just to clear things up, I know there's a difference between being kind and considerate and being a doormat. My thoughts were actually more on the state of society and the greedy, self-absorbed people who run it, although at the same time I do feel this on a more personal level. This is not going to change unless we speak up and make ourselves heard. Let others' opinion matter over my own. It created havoc with my self-esteem and created anxiety. Whatever I achieved, it seemed it was because I was lucky. Now I don't know who I am and what I could been. Someone replied, I highly recommend the book The 6 Pillars of Self-Esteem. It talks about all of the elements that comprise a self-esteem in a way that I've never read anywhere else. It gives practical advice in each chapter about how to develop that particular pillar. I'm so thankful that I found it. I was working 40 hours a week while still in high school. After 6 months of non-stop work, I fell asleep behind the wheel and I lost my leg. Overspending. Got a credit card as soon as I turned 18. It had a limit of £5,000 and I was not financially responsible. Cut a long story short, more credit cards, horrible cycle of debt, had to dig myself out of it. I got out of debt at 32, lived paycheck to paycheck for a while. I'm 37 now, and this year is first year of my life I have savings. If anyone out there has crippling debt, don't feel hopeless, there's always a way out, even if it takes years. You can do it. Gave my legs for a stranger's life during a 16-car loop. 8 years and 17 surgeries later, I can kinda walk again. My life is in complete shambles. I've gained 100 pounds, and I lost my career, a really fucking good one. Edit. Lots of questions for the story. Here it is. We were car number 3 of 16. Saw car 2 spinning before we got rear-ended. Saw car 2's driver ejected. He landed in the open road. When we crashed, I jumped out, got to the body, and moved him. The car that would have ground him into paste ended up hitting me going about 55 miles per hour. I was airborne for about 38 feet before landing on another car. 38 non-union brakes, over 100 fractures, lost my left thumb and my right anterior tibialis. I also tore all 4 rotator cuff muscles in my right shoulder. Was 2 years before they fixed the shoulder because the legs were really bad. Both of my femur and tibia have all had titanium rods in them that run the entire length of the bone. I've had 2 external fixators, remember Gattaca, on my left leg, one for 9 months, one for 6. I still can't run or jump at all, and I live in perpetual pain. Because I had so many surgeries, I also developed a dependence on opioids. The constipation was so bad that I needed another surgery on my asshole to put it back together. Not telling the truth of why I was depressed and how depressed I was, my dad walked in and asked if I had been okay recently cause I have a past with depression not 5 minutes ago, and I said I was fine lol. I got into the car of a couple that saw me walking home from school and offered me a ride home. Instead of driving me home, they took me to their house, where they beat me for putting up a fight when they were about to assault me and raped me. I'm still struggling alone mentally and don't trust anybody. Edit. For those who want to know the whole story of what happened, I posted my story on the rape counseling subreddit. It is the first post I made on this account. I appreciate the kind words and support. Thank you, someone replied. I was sexually assaulted as a child and living with PTSD for just about 20 years before I started the process of healing. It is not too late. The world is catching up to the complexities of trauma. I'd be glad to share some very modest guidance with you if you'd welcome that. If so, you can DM me. The nervous system can learn and unlearn. Spent way too much time alone as a kid playing video games instead of socializing with friends. My social skills were stunted for many years, which made things much harder than they needed to be. Had a drug problem. Got clean at 21, roughly 10 years ago. Looking to get a government engineering job, but the government has different ideas on it. It seems unlikely I will be able to get a security clearance. I don't want to complain though, because I know plenty of other people who still have their drug problems. I know I'm just lucky to have been able to get on with my life. Anyway kids, I suggest going to therapy instead of doing drugs. Loved the wrong person, eating habits, exercise habits. I suppose this is something I technically didn't do, but I never picked a career path. So now I've got a CV the length of my arm from various jobs and education that span over 3 countries, 18 years and with little to no recent experience. Due to taking care of my son and helping my ex-husband through education for his career path, I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up. Sorry to say it, but to regret. I hate them every time I see them. Gave up on everything when I was in college. Stopped going to school, slacked at work, did nothing in my free time. I was living a day at a time with no plans for the future because I had no hope that life would get better. Now I'm here looking back at how things could have been different if I had a different mindset back then. These days I'm doing my best to do the things I should have done then, so the next time I reflect on the past 10 years I can feel pride instead of shame.